Have we got a song for this one?
Yeah, it's song
Old
from in the
Lang
film, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
Old
Old
Lang
Lang
Syne.
Syne.
Welcome to Nerds Chatting, movie, TV, comic chat. Thanks for tuning in.
Welcome everybody to the nerdschatting podcast. My name is Nate, and with me this evening are my two very good friends, JB and Ben. Hello.
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 Also guest starring for the sixth. Recently, many times guest starring is Dr. Rebecca. Hello.
Hello.
Hi,
Yes,
Dr. Becker.
we're Nerds Chatting. We chat about all things nerdy, movies and TV shows and comic books. And sometimes we do a Christmas trilogy of Christmas stuff. This is the first time. And we're doing it now. So 2 weeks ago, we reviewed, James, your choice of Christmas movie.
Yes,
which
we did.
was Miracle on 34th Street,
Mm-hmm.
1990s version, which we all really pretty much loved. There was some healthy debate there, but we all were touched by it. It touched us. Last week we did a review of my choice, which was A Muppet Christmas Carol, and we all really loved that.
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
And this week, Ben, it's your choice of movie. What are we going to be discussing this week?
This week we are going to be discussing It's a Wonderful Life.
Which is just such a great choice. But before we get into it, JB, what is the plot of It's a Wonderful Life?
So you want to know the plot, like a little synopsis? You don't want me to go like stage by stage through the film, just give you high level, yeah? A Wonderful Life is a 1946 American Christmas fantasy drama film produced and directed by a very good director, Frank Capra, okay? And it's based on a short story called The Greatest Gift, which was written by Philip Van Doren Stern. I hope I've done that correctly. The film stars James Stewart as George Bailey, and he was fantastic. A man who's given up his dreams to help others and who's intimate, I can't say it, intimate? He's going to die, so he's going to commit suicide real soon on Christmas Eve, brings together the intervention of a guardian angel called Clarence. Okay, Clarence shows George how it touched people's lives and others, and how different life would be if it wasn't for him, if he wasn't around in his community in Bedford Falls, if he hadn't been born. There you go. I believe that is a very high level plot stroke synopsis of a 2 hour and 20-minute film.
It is. And Ben, I mean, James has already covered some of this, but who stars in this movie?
Well, as James said, it stars Jimmy Stewart as George Bailey, Donna Reed as Mary Hatch Bailey, Lionel Barrymore as the villainous Mr. Henry Potter, Tommy Mitchell as the dipstick Uncle Billy, and Henry Travers as Clarence P. Oddbody, Angel, second class. Doesn't have his wings yet.
Now, I have 2 pieces of trivia for this movie so far, and you guys might have some trivia, so let's throw them out there. The first one is that the Raven that's in it is in a whole host of other Capra movies. We were watching it, we're like,
what is that Raven doing
why is there a pet Raven?
Yeah.
And it's a Capra thing, apparently. It's and quite frankly, if I was going to have any pet ever, it would be a Raven.
Would it?
I don't believe you. I genuinely don't believe you. I think you'd have a seagull.
I believe.
I think you'd have a seagull.
No, seagulls are too clever. They wouldn't want to be captured. But ravens, they might be friendly. They might like lay with you and stroke you and let you stroke them, and they talk to you and stuff. Ravens can talk. You know that, like parrots. So that was my first bit of trivia. The second bit of trivia. This is made by a film company called Liberty Bell Films, something like that. And there were only 2 movies made by this film company, both of them Frank Capra movies. And then the company went out of business after the second film. That's my trivia for this.
Yeah, because this leads into a bit of my trivia, because the films that they made for the studio didn't do very well, and in fact, this film was a bit of a box office failure. It had a $3.7 million budget, which was pretty big at the time, and it only made $3.3 million back. So it was a financial and critical failure. However, it's since gone on to become, included on multiple top 100 movie lists, and it's shown every Christmas, and it's Steven Spielberg's favorite movie. There you go.
So apparently, according to that video that you sent along, Ben, the reason that everyone thinks so fondly of it and the reason that everyone thinks it so often is that the rights to the movie fell away from the company and it was able to be re-shown on American TV whenever they wanted without having to pay royalties. So over the Thanksgiving/Christmas period, they just showed it like every week, sometimes twice a week.
Really?
And so
Wow.
everyone in America thinks of it as a film that's synonymous with Christmas and Thanksgiving and that sort of era, but it wasn't intended to be.
Well, I was going to say that because I feel like there isn't very much Christmas in it until the very end. Because we were watching it and I was just like, why is this a Christmas film?
I'm going to agree with her. I'm going to agree with Becca the whole way. Absolutely whole way. I would not say this is a Christmas movie at all.
Well, I think that it's a very interesting. We'll get to this a little bit later, but I think it's a really interesting twist on A Christmas Carol. So that's why I think it is a Christmas movie. We actually watched the colorized version of this, and I have to say, I thought that was excellent.
It's really good.
Really good.
Yeah.
Like it gave it much more depth than
Yeah.
previous versions I've seen. Normally is black and white, so it's colorized as in they've gone over it later and made it color. I don't know how they've done that. They must have put filter plates over it or something, or
So, yeah.
I don't know.
I guess they go through it cell by cell and add the colorization to each part of the cell.
I don't know.
It must have taken forever. I mean, surely someone with a first-class degree in film studies would know how they did this.
If only we had someone. I mean, I thought it was rotoscoped, but it's not at all. It's not. It's rotoscoping is where you paint over. Like I was thinking it was going to be like really obviously drawn over and really horrible, but it wasn't. It was like as if they filmed it in color, but they could only show it in black and white before, and then suddenly it was. I don't know. It's really good. I highly recommend the color version. What I don't highly recommend is the remake that was made in the 70s called It Happened One Christmas, which you might be interested in because George Bailey is gender swapped and it's something Bailey Hatch, and I think it's Mary is the main character and George is a house husband, and it's everything is about it is but it's gender swapped.
Oh.
And but it looks horrible. And
typical.
Orson Welles plays Mr. Potter.
Oh, very good.
Citizen Kane fame. Anyway, what did we like about this movie? Rebecca, what did you like about this movie?
I like the end. Not, and I don't mean.
Oh, when it's finished.
No, that's not what I mean. I'm not that joke. I just mean I like that everybody brings the money so that he doesn't have to go to prison and everything's all right in the end. And that's the only sort of joyful bit, because every other bit of it made me angry.
Because he sort of puts himself out constantly.
Mm-hmm. There's one person I'm most angry with.
Who's that?
A woman.
Mary. Why?
Because it's all her fault. Everything that goes wrong is all her fault.
Really?
Wow. Is it because are you saying this, Becca, because of the theory that she makes the wish that George stays in Bedford Falls when she throws the rock at the old house, which then later on becomes their home?
Yes.
And because her wish came true, it, for all intents and purposes, ruined George's life. But did it ruin George's life? He just had a different life to the one that he dreamt of, right?
No, it ruined his life.
Okay.
Let me throw out one thing that I liked. We'll get to what we didn't like in a minute. Okay. The one thing in particular I've got two things I really liked. First one is the more or less the first scene. It's not quite. It's the drugstore scene where Mr. Gower, his son has died, and George spots it, and then the altercation they have, and then he hits him in the ear, and then he begs him to not, and then they become friends. It's making the hairs on the back of my neck stand up now. I was as close to tears as I ever have been watching a film.
He actually said when we were watching it, "Oh my god, this bit makes me want to cry," and I've never heard his voice be so tearful before.
It did quiver a little bit, didn't it?
Yeah.
That, every time I know it's coming.
What is it about it that makes you want to cry?
That both of them are in the right, and they're both lovely people, and they've both. Mr. Gower isn't. He's not doing anything on purpose there. He's made a mistake, and George has spotted it. But George, in the time that it's set, George is being disobedient to him, and I don't condone him beating him around the ear. But that the point is, he beats him because he's filled with grief, and he's overreacting. Not only is he overreacting with that, but he did the wrong thing with the medicine. And there's something like primal about the boy just begging him to stop him beating him, like, please stop hitting my bad ear. And him not only begging him, but it's like making me like go now, like, but begging him, but also saying, you're a good man, I know you didn't mean to do it. I think it's fantastic. It's absolutely.
I agree, Nathan. Every time that scene gets me, and I always think it won't get me this time because I remember what's going to happen here, and then boom, it gets me every single time. The way he's begging Mr. Gower and saying, like you said, that, he knows he's a good man. He knows he didn't mean to do it. He knows he didn't do it on purpose. He knows he doesn't mean to be hitting him the way he is now, but he just wanted to help, just wanted to save him. When he looks at that sign that says, ask Dad, he knows, it's such a typical, American advertisement from wherever, like 100 years ago, whatever it was.
Yeah, wasn't it? Yeah, 1928. No.
Yeah. No, this was 1919, and do you know how I know it's 1919? Because the telegram says the date, and it's also heavily speculated that Mr. Gower's son died of the influenza pandemic that was happening at the time, which was just after the end of the First World War, where it swept through Europe and all that.
Influenza 19.
Yes, there you go.
And the second thing that I really, really loved was James Stewart's acting. The scene when he has a breakdown in the bar where he's crying. Apparently he'd been in World War II before filming this, and he was very, very likely suffering from PTSD, and he brought that to the film. And I think when he cries, begging God to come and help him, I think it really comes across. It feels like the most in an era when acting is shouting at the screen and then being really quiet. Like, it's just, I feel like it's an era where acting wasn't really refined for film, and yet it's just so real. It's so believable. I loved it. I absolutely loved that bit. James, what did you like about the movie?
So this was my first time ever of watching this film. So yeah, I've never seen it before. Actually, had it on record from last year over Christmas, and then it got to like March, April, June time, and I was like, I'm never going to watch it, so I deleted it off my Sky Player. It was a really good film. It was good. Was it a really good film? No, it was good. I enjoyed the story. Yeah, I enjoyed the story. It gets a little bit tedious, I think, every time he's looking to leave and then something else happens.
Yeah.
Okay. But I guess that just in some ways reinforces the story. Right at the start, he's like, I'm going to get out. I'm going to do these big things and everything else like that. And I could relate to it in some ways, to some stoicism through the film as well. Just always want it, to be there and help, and always he's always putting everyone first before himself, which links into something that I really didn't like about the film, but I'll go into that one we didn't like. I quite liked the Mr. Potter character as this evil sort of person, but he reminded me a bit of like a Dr. Evil, like ha 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 type of.
He was super evil, wasn't he? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, he's Ebenezer Scrooge, right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
He's Ebenezer Scrooge without being redeemed at the end. He's the worst part of Scrooge at the start of A Christmas Carol. That's Mr. Potter.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think just because it was kind of nice to reminisce and look at quite an old film, and I sat down and I did enjoy it. But there's a difference between enjoying and liking and thinking it was really good.
Did it make you tear up at all, JB?
No.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
It's really interesting you say about the stoic element. There's a really powerful thing in stoicism that we've seen before. The word enough, and being not wanting more than you have, but loving what you have now. So the richest man in the world is the man who appreciates what he has and doesn't want for anything else. And that is George Bailey. That is him.
Yeah, he's got a richness of life, and sometimes, and he doesn't realize, I guess he has these bigger dreams of like going away and doing like his brother, because his brother went into the Navy or something, I think, from what I remember, then gets the Congressional Medal of Honor or whatever it is, and kind of he just steps into his father's shoes, and he didn't really want to do that. It almost becomes Bailey Falls in some ways, because he's so well known, and Potter's got every other bit apart from the loan company. You know, that kind of reminded me a bit of Monopoly at some point. Like, he's just gone around and got everything, and there's,
Yeah.
you just can't buy that one blasted thing because someone keeps on going past go and not hitting all my bloody properties. That's sort of but yeah, it was good. It was a great story. I found it very interesting. I liked it at the start when it set it up with I'm assuming it was God, and they say that Clarence has to, they give the story before Clarence turns up, and then that bit seems to be a little bit rushed for me, but was still really good. I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it.
It's really interesting again the way you say that. Is that the actual, sorry Ben, I will get to what you liked in a second.
No, it's
but
fine. It's fine.
The actual plot of the plot of the movie is like the last 30 minutes maybe.
Yeah.
Like 3/4 of it is George Bailey's life, and actually we'll get into what we didn't like. I would say that the last bit is the least enjoyable bit of the movie. But anyway, Ben, what did you like?
Oh, well, I mean, this being my choice, there are so many things about this film that I liked. I mean, I've already agreed with you, Nathan, about the scenes with Mr. Gower and the tears that brings every time. Just the fact that George is always trying to do his best for the town, even though he hates the place and wants to leave. I think subconsciously he knows deep down that if he doesn't do it after his father dies, his Uncle Billy is just not savvy enough to step into that role. So and he thinks that just only he and his brother are the right men for the job. So he's a dutiful son in that way, because he's always willing to make the sacrifice to step in. And even then, when his brother lets him down and gets the job offer from his new father-in-law, again, he steps in. He for one moment he looks really cross and angry, and then he just stoically, I guess, sucks it up and just moves on and says, well, okay, well, this is a decision that's been made. I have to support my brother. I'm going to do that. He gave away his college tuition money to his brother so his brother could go to college instead of him. He didn't go on his honeymoon because the Great Depression hit. So yeah, he didn't go on his honeymoon with his wife. His father died, so he stepped in to be the executive officer of the building and loan. He's always sacrificing what he wants to do, even though it's all of his dreams ever since he was a kid, to do what's best for the town. And the way the town repays him at the end, it never fails to break me in half. Never, ever fails to get me. It shows that we do not realize how many lives we touch going about our day-to-day lives ourselves. You don't realize the impact you have on other people at all. This film reminds you that you have a massive impact on everyone around you, both positively and negatively. So you have to remember that. So your actions have consequences. Your actions have an impact on people. And I think that the way that this film portrays George as being such a positive force for good in Bedford Falls is just wonderful. It's so wonderfully put on the screen. I know it's 1946, and there are bits in this things that I don't like as well that we'll get to. However, for me, it is one of the greatest films that has ever been made. And I'll tell you what I really like as well, the alternate Pottersville scenes. There's one scene that I don't like in particular, which we'll get to, but it very much feels like Robert Zemeckis took a lot of influence from that when making Back to the Future Part 2, in Biff Tannen's alternate Hill Valley.
Mate, I thought exactly that. I thought Back to the Future. I genuinely thought Back to the Future, because it turned Bedford Falls into some sort of almost like prostitute town. And
City,
yeah. Better way of putting it, Nate. Sin City, which was really quite peculiar, but familiar at the time. And if you said that, I thought exactly the same, Ben. Exactly the same.
I also think that the supporting cast are great. I think that Donna Reed as Mary is fantastic, and I think she stands up very well to what is a powerhouse performance from Jimmy Stewart. I'm just trying to look through my notes here very quickly just to find out there's something else that I really. Do you know what I really like? I really like the fact that Potter doesn't get his comeuppance at the end, because that's life. The bad guy doesn't always get what he deserves in real life, you know? And I think this film was made at a certain time in American, in Hollywood sort of filmmaking history, where there was a code laid out for all films where the bad guy had to either repent or come to justice at the end. And this film subverts that and sort of moves around it. And I like that because feels like real life. It feels like real life that the bad guy who's, you know, taken over the town and, you know, is trying to get him thrown in jail for scandal and the loss of the $8,000. Well done, Uncle Billy, you dipstick. He doesn't get his comeuppance. And that's right. Look at Donald Trump. Is he going to get his comeuppance? Probably not. Let's keep going.
One of the things that we talked about once we finished watching it is how, as I said earlier, it's a twist on A Christmas Carol.
Yes.
So George Bailey is in essence Bob Cratchit.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I really like that. I really like it. It feels like a reboot of A Christmas Carol. Like, you know, obviously a film from 1946 now is a very old film, but at the time it must have been quite innovative.
I think so.
People were aware of that. Do you think it was a conscious decision?
I don't know. I would like to think that people recognised the concept of what if existence.
But did it get released in cinemas around Christmas time?
I believe it did.
Okay.
Oh.
Well, I'm just saying that if it was out of context of Christmas, you wouldn't necessarily draw the Christmas link.
So
I agree.
Here's a question: if the final scene wasn't at Christmas time, would it change the movie in any way? What's the benefit of it being set at Christmas time? Why is that happening? Is it literally so that there can be a bell on the tree? I
guess in some way it's because of the thing about Christmas is family, and Bedford Falls is George's family. I mean, you could say he's a tyrant or a dictator of this area, but he's not. It's good versus evil. He is the good guy and Potter is the bad guy.
Yeah.
Fact, you know. Though how the hell the Baileys survive and they've got so many bloody kids and he's got no money, I do not know. But we can go there another time. But I think it's hard to put the film if you didn't have that Christmas. I mean, it could have been at Easter, anytime. I don't know, but I guess the whole thing about community and family and everything else like that. Christmas is that sort of. I don't want to say Mecca, that's the wrong word, but there is. It's everyone just comes together and helps no matter what.
Right. And so maybe the end scene where everyone comes together for him would be less believable if it wasn't set at Christmas time because like you say, it's the spirit of togetherness and
generosity.
Community, exactly.
But at the same time, if it was me personally, if someone had helped me out and I knew they were in trouble, it didn't matter what time of year it would be, I would be like, look, I can help you, I can do this, I can do that. So yeah.
Okay, so unless anyone's got any more things they liked about this movie, should we move on to the things we didn't like? What did you not like about this movie?
Well, I think, you know, a few of us have mentioned how frustrating it is that he keeps getting his plans go off the rails repeatedly, again. But I just felt like, you know, they're standing outside that house and George says, oh, you can make a wish if you get a stone and break some of the glass.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, no. She doesn't really care. And then he throws it and hits some glass and he explains that he knows exactly what he's going to do with his life. He's going to leave here. He's going to go traveling. Then he's going to get a degree. Then he's going to build cities. And then she's like, oh, all right then. Grabs the stone, throws it into a window and it smashes. And then his whole life falls apart. Even though she knew what he really wanted to do with his life, she had no consideration for that. She just selfishly wanted what she wanted, which was to live in that house with him, and didn't care about what suffering that put him through. And it's just frustrating because, again, it's because, you know, she didn't have very many options either. Her options are basically limited to marrying a man.
Well, if she doesn't marry a man, she becomes an old maid that works at the library. The worst fate anyone could have. No, it's not. I know, it's ridiculous. She seems very happy at the end.
I've actually got that as one of the things that I don't like about the film. The fact that without George being born, Mary is destined to become an old maid. So that's her destiny without this man being in her life to save her. And I don't like that at all. And it's different to the short story, because in the short story, she is married to someone else. Okay, the guy that she's married to is a bit of an abusive drunk, but there are arguments to be made that George is quite an abusive person in himself. When they get together on the phone call to Sam Wainwright, and he's shaking her and telling her how much he doesn't want to be with her and he's never going to get married. And then he sort of like collapses and hugs her. And okay, it might have this sort of weird, romantically sweet element to it because he's just so distraught. But there's no excuse to do that. You know, that's abuse. You can't do that.
I agree. That's one of my didn't like, is that scene where yes, I wanted him to snap and go, Mary, I'm so sorry. I love you. Of course, I want to like kiss me. I'm sorry for my poor attitude, but it doesn't. He just grabs her and says, "I'm in the right. I'm not doing this," and then he kisses her, and that's it. That's the
Also, the bit where she's in the bush naked and he's taunting her with the dressing gown is also not okay nowadays.
No, it's a 1940s movie, isn't it?
It's very much of its time. Yeah, that's very not okay. Very much not okay.
I actually, like I said earlier, I actually think the last section of the movie, when he has the vision, whatever the experience where he's not born, it's my least favorite bit. It's weird. I think that the movie is real all the way through, and then suddenly there's this fantastical element that obviously I know is coming, but at the same time I'm like, oh, that's jarring, and then it's just horrible. Everything is just horrible, and I know it's designed to be horrible. I know it's designed to be so horrible that when he comes out of it, it's wonderful and it's a wonderful life. But I just really don't like it. I just really find it, I don't know. George is so dumb about it. Like, how many times? It's a bit like Scrooge.
Yeah.
How many times do you have to be told, "I'm your guardian angel. You made a wish. You don't exist." He sees people act completely differently, dress completely differently, experience different things. Gower is like a
signs are completely different.
Signs are different. The whole street, the whole town is different. Yeah, his lip suddenly is healed. How stupid is George?
He can suddenly hear through the ear that he couldn't hear through since he was like 11 years old. Yeah, but Nathan, I actually think that's a good bit, because he doesn't believe that this fantastical thing is happening because it's real. This is a real story. This is happening in a real world. So he's not going to believe. He's going to repeatedly go, "This is a joke. You're all playing a prank on me because I don't believe this, because this sort of thing isn't real." So I understand why he does that. I get it. I mean, it does go on and on and on and on. And you do think, come on, mate, after being told twice is one time too many at this point. But again, it's reinforcing the fact that this is a fantastical element. It's like the ghosts in A Christmas Carol. You don't believe that they are there. They can't be there. They're ghosts. Ghosts aren't real. And yet they drive the story forward. So this is that part of this film, just, an hour and 45 minutes into the runtime. So yeah, I get it.
James, what did you not like particularly about this film?
I definitely didn't like the scene that you've spoken about already on the telephone. I found it really peculiar and actually quite awkward.
Yes, awkward. Great word, JP.
Really sort of like, a bit, I don't know. I just didn't like it. Everything you said. I also didn't like about the fact that when George was up shit creek without a paddle, he decides to go and speak to the devil in Potter and not go and speak to everyone else. So in some ways it made me feel like George was quite an arrogant prick. So, I can help everybody else, but no one else can help me apart from the richest man in town.
And he's even given the option of his friend Sam Wainwright, who is a millionaire, who is one of his best friends, who then does say, "I can wire you up to £200,000 or something, or
$25,000. He can't get hold of him. He's in Europe. He can't reach him.
There's still, it feels. I agree with James. Absolutely, that scene where he goes to Potter is just like, this is completely manufactured, doesn't work, wouldn't happen. The last 2 hours you've shown us how nice this guy is. He wouldn't go to it.
Yeah, and
he's acting out of desperation, right? He's acting out of desperation.
Absolutely, Ben. But if I was acting out of desperation, I wouldn't go to somebody who I didn't particularly like and ask them for some help. I would go to my closest friends who know me and who can help. I mean, all right, if it's a nail in the coffin because Potter's got the money and George doesn't know that, and again it makes Potter look more like that Dr. Evil type of person. But I just feel like I just think to myself that if I was helping people out and I then said, oh, by the way, Ben and Nate, I can't pay my mortgage this month. I would think that you may not be able to pay for all of it, but you would be able to help or do something. I wouldn't go to somebody else who is my, I wouldn't say arch enemy, but it is a bit like the arch enemy because Potter offers him good money to work for him. You mentioned, Nate, as well, that his best friend, and I've forgotten the name, I'm sorry,
Sam
tells him,
Wainwright.
Sam Wainwright, thank you, Ben, to invest in this plastics, and it would have made him like absolutely shed loads of money. So, okay, he can handle himself in Bedford Falls, but I wonder whether he could actually handle himself outside in all these big dreams that he has, whether he would actually make it, because maybe he's what's that thing? What's the film when he goes, if you want to be a big cop in a small town, go and piss down to the model village. It's
Hot Fuzz.
Hot Fuzz.
yeah, Hot Fuzz. Thank you very much. I don't know. Maybe he's he's big time in this in Bedford Falls, but outside I'm not sure. So it just conjured up a lot of confusion in some ways for me.
Yeah, George is really dumb, isn't he? The more you say it, the more you convince me he's actually really dumb. Because there's even a bit where there's a suggestion that people might be saying that he's having an affair with no, I can't remember now. But everyone who he is very close friends with, who'd come to his rescue in the town, Violet, thank you, they all know him. They know he's grown up with them. He knows the relationship he's had with Violet and with Mary. Like everyone knows him. So they know that he wouldn't be doing that. In fact, they would know that he's such a nice man that he would be lending her money because he's a nice man, not because he's having an affair with her. So like he's so stupid. He doesn't realise that. And I suppose that's the point of the end sequence, is that he has a realization about what he means to these people. How does he survive? How does he get through every day without realizing even an iota of that? He's dumber than I realized he was.
I think I agreed with you about the end towards the end of the film, but actually how Ben's been talking, it's slightly changed my mind on it. You know, it is kind of, I don't know how long it would take me to realize that someone or friends that I'm with, that I know, like you yourself, say I have a guardian angel or something, and they say I'm born, and then I'll be like, of course I was born. You know, I was on nerdschatting, I'm the most popular one, etc. And then I come, there's like, so I don't know, this is the time, and I come into a Teams meeting, and you guys are like, oh, who are you? And I'll be like, great joke, guys. You're really, really funny. And they're like, no, I don't know who you are. I'm like, come on now, let's stop joking. And then I would kind of stop and pause for a bit. And then, I don't know.
Well, you'd refuse to believe it, James. You
Well,
would refuse to believe that we didn't know who you were because it's not real.
No, I guess so.
I've got one more thing that I don't like, but I don't like it because I recognize a trait of myself in it. And it's the scene when George comes home to the drafty old house. And why the hell do we live here? Why haven't we all died of pneumonia already? He is at his wit's end so much that he takes it out on his family, takes it out on his wife, and he takes it out on his kids. And I have come home from work or come downstairs after being at work for the day in my bedroom / office, and I've had a terrible day, and I've been short-tempered with my family, and I don't like it. I don't like that trait in myself, and I hate to see it in George in this movie because he doesn't mean it, and yet he still does it and makes his kids cry, and it's heartbreaking because it's just a recognizable thing that I have seen myself do, and I've seen other people do it. I've seen, my stepdad has done it, and it's not a nice thing to witness. I didn't like seeing it. So yeah, that's something I don't like in the film.
But it's well, I suppose some of what we've said, and it's the same for this one, is that it's a thing we don't like, but it does serve a purpose in the story.
Yes.
But George actually, it shows that George is not actually as nice as we've all kind of made him out to be in the sort of cultural surrounding of this movie, as opposed to the actual plot. He's not actually as much of a nice guy. He does have strops, and he does, when he shook her when he was kissing her, and then he comes home and he's angry with the kids. Like I know
And
we
he
all had
shouts
that.
at Uncle Billy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uncle
And
Billy
he-
is a dipstick, but whatever.
Oh, yeah, he's horrible to the school teacher.
And he gets a punch in the face, quite rightly, I think,
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah.
Well,
I
that's when he's having his meltdown at home, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it just goes to prove that we've all got limitations. You know.
Yeah.
But it almost feels like everyone thinks that, oh yeah, George is the greatest guy because he helps everybody else at home, but he could be really nasty at home or something else like that. But I think in some ways it humanizes him slightly.
Yeah.
But I still feel he's stupid.
But yeah, even in the middle of that scene where he's being that miserable, horrible prick to all of his family, he still goes upstairs to sit with Zuzu because she's not feeling very well. And he gets the petals from her and he puts them in his pocket and they come into play later. And yet he's so sweet and like a good father to her, even though 10 seconds later he then goes downstairs and he's shouting at the school teacher and he's threatening the school teacher's husband. And then he's screaming at his kids and he's wrecking the place and making his kid cry because she keeps on playing the same piece of music over and over again on the piano. And it's real.
Zuzu's his favorite. That's why. Fact. He nails it. Absolutely nails it.
Wow, James, you're not allowed to admit on a podcast that you have favorite children. You're not allowed to.
I didn't say that. I said that George has a favorite.
There's one other thing I didn't like before we get into the next section, if that's all right, is I love Jimmy Stewart's acting, apart from the final scene when he's singing like he's had a stroke. I don't know what's going on with his mouth. He's doing this weird rah rah thing, and I just why is he doing it? Why every time I see this film, I'm like, why are you doing that? Why can't you just sing like a normal person? What is happening right now? And it always throws me off the final scene. Has anyone else noticed that?
Yes, I've noticed it when he I think it's the line, "We'll take a cup of kindness," or whatever it is. It's that bit that it almost comes in like he's slightly out of time, and you can hear him saying it when everyone else has sort of moved on to the next part of the song, and it's like,
Just
redo that bit, or cut it out. Whatever. At that point of the film, I'm so overcome with the joy at the fact that he's been saved and the whole family are there and the town are there to help him. It's just brilliant. Also, the line from Annie saying, "I've been saving this money for a divorce for when I get a husband."
Oh, yeah.
Superb. Absolutely brilliant. Well done, Annie. Anyway, sorry, Nathan.
So I'm interested to know what all of you at the end of watching it, generally, do you have a feeling of happiness or generally do you have a feeling of sadness?
For me, it's sadness. I think so. There's an extra element for me in that they sing "Auld Lang Syne," and that's a New Year's song. And for me, New Year's has not always, but I think in my adult years has been a time not necessarily of parties and stuff. It's more of a sad time, I find it. So for me, that kind of hits that note for me. What about you?
Yeah, I'd say sadness too, but not for that reason.
What reason did you have?
Because I feel like only some people make as much of a difference as that. Doctors,
teachers,
maybe teachers. I don't feel like
podcasters.
James Bingham.
I didn't save anybody when I was 11 years old.
But you don't know. You don't know that.
And I don't, don't have a job that's enabled hundreds of people to get a house. And
Yeah, but your job has enabled people to have academic.
No, somebody else would have got that job if I haven't done anything. And
someone else would have got George's job.
And I also, if I was in that trouble, I owed somebody £8,000. I don't think I would have enough friends to give me £8,000. So I just feel like it works in that context for that particular person. But I think for a lot of people in this world, they don't do something that has that much of an impact. And I think, or have that many friends, because people lose friends nowadays more than they used to, especially if they don't live in the same town as they used to.
Isn't that weirdly ironic with how connected we all are?
We're not genuinely connected.
No. James, what were you going to say?
I don't want to disagree with Becca, because I don't like doing that. But I will just say that I'm gonna take back my comments slightly about when I said about George's arrogance, and he may be oblivious to how he's helping people and the difference that he's making on their lives. So he probably knows that no one's got any money to give him once he's lost the £8,000, because he knows their finances and knows that they're already struggling. So when and then picking up on a point that Ben made earlier, I believe, is that sometimes you don't know about making a difference in someone's life, and you could just be in a lecture theatre or just walking down a corridor or having a conversation, and it could completely change someone's thoughts, and they might not tell you, they probably won't tell you, but you may have like touched them in a way that will start them on a different path, or think about something slightly different, or something else like that. So it doesn't have to be monetary. It doesn't have to, doctors are there to make a difference at the NHS, and they do a fantastic job, especially from a medical perspective. But I think for maybe just our average Joes that are not in that line of work, you can just have a conversation with someone and completely change their outlook.
Well, this, I think, is what it fits into the message, or the Christmas message of the film. And again, I don't like to disagree with you, Becca, because let's face it, you are an awful lot cleverer than I am. However, I think that the message of the film is that everyone is important, and every life has a purpose, no matter how big or small that purpose is. Yeah, Becca, you say that you don't think that you do things that have a big impact on the world, but like JB says, you don't know. You could have given someone a piece of advice just off the top of your head one day, and that person passed on that piece of advice to someone else, and then that person went and changed the world with that piece of advice, and that piece of advice could have been anything. We just don't know the influence that we have on other people around us. We don't know. We think we know, but we really don't. The fact that George doesn't realize that him never being born meant that his brother died, meant that that entire ship full of soldiers in the Pacific were killed by Japanese sorry, what's the phrase I'm after here? Kamikaze pilots. He didn't even think of that. He didn't even think of that. He made an off-the-cuff decision. Maybe I should never have been born. Fine, you're never born. All those people are now dead. Everyone in the town is now miserable. Everyone in the town is now worse off for it. I think they are. Look at there's a scene in the bar before George goes to the bridge where he decides he's going to jump. And Nick, the bartender, is really kind, and he leans in and he says, "George, are you all right? Do you need a lift home, friend? Are you okay?" Flip that back to when it's Pottersville and George goes into the bar with Clarence, and Nick is gruff and angry and like short-tempered, and he's throwing people out left, right, and center. And Gower is a son of a bitch, rummy, who comes into his bar and he killed loads of people accidentally, so he's out on his ear. And there's that scene. That scene in itself just demonstrates that we don't know the impact we have on people. And I think that's the message of this film. Every life is important, no matter how big or how small the impact.
I just want to say that I'm not cleverer than any of you. I just have a really niche interest in and
spent 10 years studying
a
it.
long time studying it, yeah.
I really wish that my niche interest sent me out to Israel to dig up, things that are hundreds of thousands of years old and have massive significance and cultural impact. That's something you have an impact on, Becca. Some of the things that you've done, digging up in the sand.
Yeah, like finding Nate, but he's not like 100,000 years old or important.
Although some could argue he is 100,000 years old. Jesus. But no, that's what I think the message of this film is. I don't know. That's just my thoughts. What do you think?
That's really good, because that's what I was going to ask, what we thought the Christmas message is. And I think, James, you mentioned earlier that it's kind of about if it is Christmas, it's about community, it's about coming togetherness. And as I said earlier as well, I think there's a big overriding message of being grateful for what you have, because I think there's both sides of it. How you affect other people, but also the things that you have. Because your opinion of Mary ruining his life is under the thought process of his life would be better if. Whereas I think the message is his life is wonderful regardless.
Maybe Mary making the wish that she makes. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just saying. I guess that is the title of the film. Can't really disagree with that.
To feed off of that point, but to go back to something that James said as well, maybe Mary making the wish that she made actually did George a kindness, because George possibly isn't as clever as he thinks he is, and doesn't have the ability to build skyscrapers and bridges 10 miles long and all this sort of thing. So maybe Mary making the wish that George stays in Bedford Falls, marries her and lives in that house, and they have a family. Maybe that saves him and ultimately leads him to what the purpose of his life was always meant to be.
Saving everything.
Yeah.
No,
maybe.
I think that he would have learnt all the things he needs to learn while he's travelling and when he goes to college. So I think that just because he looks stupid because he's only ever been in Bedford Falls and doesn't know how the wider world works, I don't think that would have been the same if he had gone travelling and had gone to college.
Final few questions. Knowing that it has been remade in the 70s, should this movie be remade now? And if so, who should star in it? Who should make it?
I think it should be remade.
But I think if they're going to remake it, it needs a proper remake, not a Netflix made-for-TV Christmas movie. I think it needs like a Ryan Gosling.
My God, it's like you're seeing into my brain. That's exactly who I've put down as George Bailey as Ryan Gosling, and I've put Emma Stone as Mary Bailey. And then you could either have Denzel Washington as Clarence and Tom Hanks as Mr. Potter, or you could flip that, or you could get rid of Denzel or Tom Hanks, have one of them play Clarence, and then have someone like God, what's the name of the chap who is Walter White in Breaking Bad? He could be Mr. Potter. Bryan Cranston, thank you. Or the guy who is Director Krennic in Rogue One. He could be Mr. Pot. Just someone who's good at being an absolute scumbag, or like Tom Hanks as Mr. Potter, someone who you don't expect to be a scumbag, but could actually really probably do it quite well. That would be good for me.
Yeah.
But I don't think you can change the period that it's set in. I think that's when you might struggle and you might have some problems.
Oh, really? See, when I envisage Ryan Gosling in it, I set it now.
Yeah, I could do that. I think it's quite a trans. I think it could easily be you could easily put it into now our time, 2020, 21, 22, whatever you want. I think you need to obviously. I think relationships are completely different, and we've spoken about that before. So I think the way that George handles the phone call and his future wife, that would be completely different. And I think the female lead in that would be more, because it's not just a sit at home type of thing, because that's just not the way it is anymore. Or it could be a female lead that's doing that's the part of it, and the other way around. I think I joke about the Dr. Evil Mr. Potter, but I think Will Ferrell could be a really good Mr. Potter.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I could just see him doing it.
I'd watch that.
Stranger Than Fiction with him?
Yes.
Is that when he's a writer and
there's a writer narrating his life?
That's right. Yes. No, I haven't.
And he plays it quite straight in that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's good. It is good. And I think quite good as a.
It's the writer, isn't it? Emma Thompson. Is it Emma Thompson?
Yes, it is. Yeah. And
Excellent.
Dustin Hoffman, maybe. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So yeah, James, you think it could be remade? Set now? You think it could be remade?
Yeah.
Set now or set in the past?
Probably now.
Yeah. So Ben, we're all agreed you're wrong.
That's fine, but I want Steven Spielberg to direct it.
Oh, Spielberg's off his game in the last 10 years. I wouldn't give it to him. No.
Who would you give it to?
Made no money. You got Bridge of Spies, made no money. What else did he do? It's made.
I give it to John. I give it to John Favreau. That's what I'd do. I give it to him. Turn it into a superhero movie.
Yeah.
What if? That's what it could be. A what if?
No, that whole thing is a what if. What a great
Yeah.
chat. It's a Marvel what if. It's the MCU, and then the last half an hour, what if?
What if there was?
Well, I think generally speaking, I think we'll go around and give it a very brief review now. I think generally speaking, I think this is a really lovely movie. I have issues with it, but I do think I really like it.
It's nice but sad. I don't know.
Okay, fair enough. JB?
I think it's got all the tellings of a Christmas movie, but for some reason, for me, it's not a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
But I would definitely watch this again. I would 100% watch it again. I don't think I'm going to become some sort of like every Christmas I'm going to watch It's a Wonderful Life.
No.
But I will definitely watch it a couple more times and yeah, it's thoroughly. Maybe I'll watch the colorized version just to really mix it up a little bit. But yeah, I enjoyed it.
Ben?
I mean, it was my choice. It's one of my favorite Christmas films. I adore it. I'm pleased I got to watch it and talk about it with you three. I can't wait to watch it again.
That's very sweet. I have one more question actually before, Ben, you tell us where people can tell us what they thought. But my final question is, can you rank the 3 movies that we've watched? And the answer isn't yes, I can rank them. I want your ranking.
Okay, I have I'm ready to go with my answer.
Go, Ben. Well, everyone thinks.
So in third place, Miracle on 34th Street. In second place is The Muppet Christmas Carol, A Muppet Christmas Carol, and in first place is It's a Wonderful Life. That's just my opinion.
Okay. For me, it's the opposite of that. It's a Wonderful Life, Miracle on 34th Street, and Muppet film.
Yeah.
Was that 3-1 or 1-3?
That was 3-1.
So my film's in last, and then Miracle is second, and then Muppets is first for you.
Yes,
yeah,
that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's wrong, but that's fine.
I would say it's really hard. They're all really close.
Yeah.
To be fair, it's not a big gap between them.
All of them have moments where you go. That's it.
Me personally.
Well, everyone. You didn't.
No, I didn't.
Because you're a cold dead heart.
First is Miracle on 34th Street.
Yeah.
Then Life is Wonderful. Then A Muppet Christmas Carol.
Okay, so you did the opposite way around to me, as in your best or worst. You did best or worst, did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I said first is.
Yes. Okay. James?
I will probably go for 34th Street, Muppets, It's a Wonderful Life. And that's what, so if I had to watch it, if I watch it again, that's what I would do. That's what I do. So first, my first one, my favorite one was the one I chose.
Yeah. Okay.
Then if I'd watched that one and then you were asking me which one would I watch again, I would then watch the Muppet Christmas Carol because it's a feel-good film. That is a feel-good film.
Yeah.
Because of the songs and everything else like that. And then it's 34th Street. That's just the way. I'm sorry, Wonderful Life.
The order we watched them in, actually.
Yes, that may have influenced my choice subconsciously. Who knows?
Well, Ben, where can people get hold of us to let us know what they think and what order they would put them in?
They can get hold of us on our social media channels. So on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. They can also send you an email, which is nerdschatting@outlook.com, and they can listen to all of our Christmas review podcasts and all of our other podcasts by going to either Spotify or Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, or Podbean, which is nerdschatting.podbean.com. Search for Nerds Chatting, you'll find us, and you can subscribe and download, and you can even leave us a review. That'd be great.
Yeah,
This is our last podcast of 2020. Maybe we might sneak one in after Christmas, but it's definitely our last one before Christmas.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, fine.
Yes.
I just wondered.
Last one
Okay,
Christmas.
I just wondered because of stuff that had happened. That's all. That Disney Plus had finally listened to me.
Oh, right,
Yeah. But the boys at Disney Plus was like, yeah, let's get on and get some new stuff on this streaming and everything else like that. But I can wait and it's all about me if you want.
Basically, in January we've got
Wonder Woman.
Yeah, Wonder Woman, Mandalorian, and the Disney news to talk about, haven't we? And then whatever else happens over the next 2 weeks.
Oh, hang on. Is it the last Mando this Friday?
Yeah, I believe it is. Yeah.
Ooh.
I haven't
fact-
even watched the last one yet.
In fact, the last Mando will have been out by the time this podcast is out.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
We're actually time traveling at the minute.
My God, I feel like I'm either in the TARDIS, Quantum Leap. Is that time travel? Yeah, Quantum Leap.
Yeah.
Or maybe a DeLorean. Maybe
Right.
that should be a podcast. Ben, Nate, that's our podcast. Next podcast as well. If you're time traveling, what would you rather be in?
We were going to do a nerds questions podcast. Do you remember where it was just like stupid nerd questions and then answering them and get people to send them in? Do you remember that?
Yeah, but I'd be buggered on that. I'd be really stuffed.
Just give your opinion of the question. You'll be fine.
Yeah, but I can't answer it.
Right. That's the end of the show. That's the end of the year. Merry Christmas, everybody. Thank you very much for tuning in.
Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you for having me again. Goodbye.
Bye.
See you later, you jerks. That's what isn't that what I say now?
Hi guys, it's Ben here, just jumping in right at the end of the episode, just to bookend the podcast and 2020 as a whole. Don't worry, Nathan James and Dr. Becker will never know I've done this. It's a Wonderful Life is amongst my favourite Christmas movies, and I wanted to read just a little piece from a 2016 article by David G. Allen, all about the movie. The movie shows that our lives are full of wonder, and that we are all interconnected. Remove one Jenga piece and the whole tower begins to wobble. Remove George Bailey and Bedford Falls crumbles into Pottersville. We are all George Bailey. We have dreams unrealized. We are stressed by daily life. We don't fully appreciate what we have or what we've managed to accomplish despite obstacles. We are too often focused on the wrong things, and we are all closer than we realize to a huge, catastrophic meltdown triggered by a single financial calamity. How many people live from one payday to the next? So, if we are all George Bailey and can feel his frustration at dreams unrealized and the stresses of daily life, then we can all also feel his joy in being reminded that we are all important. We are all a Jenga piece in the invisible tower of life, keeping the tower sturdy by our mere presence. The real lesson of It's a Wonderful Life is that what you think you want out of life and how you spend your days are not nearly as important as things like love for friends and family, the decency we display to those around us, and the value of not doing great things, but small things in a great way. Those are life's moments inscribed in our heart. And what this wonderful film reminds us to do, should old lessons be forgot and never brought to mind, is to take our heart out and read it every so often, at least every Christmas. Well, that's it, guys. What a year it's been. This year, we've been kept apart from family and friends, and life feels like it has never been this difficult. We've all struggled and seen dark times. And yes, perhaps there is a little light at the end of the tunnel. If anyone out there is struggling, because Christmas can be a difficult time to be alone, if you're listening to this, please know that you are not alone. You are a Jenga block that is a vital part of someone's life. You just may not realize it. The episode notes of this podcast contain details of how to get professional help if you need someone to talk to. You can also access that by clicking on the link in any of our social media channels. Thank you for tuning in and supporting us in 2020. We cannot tell you how much we appreciate it. We will be back in 2021, as Nathan said, with more reviews, more chat, and more fun, I guess. All that is left for me to say is stay safe, and I hope you have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Take care, everyone.